Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Hey in Gitin, near the end of the Masechet. As we learn for Fushlam, for Elazar ben Rumen, for Yosef Azriel ben Chaim Michal. Says the Mishnah on Hey, about a third of the way down. What have we learned so far in this parak? That you can't make, when you give a get, there can't be any reservation. You can't say I'm divorcing you, except as far as Joe is concerned, you're still married to me. You can make a condition as long as the condition is finite and will not last as long as the wife lasts, as long as the woman lasts. If it lasts her whole life, she's never cut off from the husband. Conditions you can make, but you can't have any reservation in the get. So you can't say I'm divorcing you except for this guy. As far as this guy's concerned, you're not divorced, you're still married to me. You can't do that. However, we'll see now other cases which where you could have exceptions. For example, this case, you're free to marry anybody you want. We're going to talk later on today about what actually is the text of the get. There are various gitin, different, but the basic idea is you're free to marry anybody. But we add on more details to that so that it's very clear and there's no misunderstanding and nobody will raise any doubts as to the validity of the get and thereby ruin her further marriages. So these are people you can't marry. You can't marry my father, my brother, your brother, an eved or a goy. In these cases, marriage is not valid anyway. You can't marry them. So if he says you're free to marry anybody except for these people who you can't marry anyway, there's no marriage is not chal. Anybody where kedushin is not chal, we'll see other cases of incest or whatever. Then kosher, the get's kosher because you've really not you have no reservation in the get. It's like I'm telling you, a Jewish man tells his wife, you can marry anybody you want. You're free to marry, but you can't marry a goy. Of course, you can't marry a goy. If you marry a goy, it's not a kedushin anyway. So there's really no reservation in the get. That's okay. That get's all right because the people that you're leaving out, that you're accepting, that you're removing from the equation are people you can't marry anyway. So this. Why put it in the guy's crazy, whatever, because he wanted to, just to drive her crazy for whatever reason. He wrote down, you're free to marry anybody you want except for my father, your brother, a guy, whatever. It's kosher because you really haven't left anything out. Let's say though, maybe this is to emphasize the next time. You're free to marry anybody. Let's say she's already an almana, or she'll become an almana later on. She's an almana from a previous marriage, and almana can't marry a kohen gadol. Says you're free to marry anybody except you can't marry the kohen gadol. Now, she can't really marry the kohen gadol anyway because she's an almana, right? But the marriage is chal. It's an aveira. It's a lav. The kids would be chalalim, but the kedusha is chal. So in these cases, even though there's an isser, we talked about that yesterday. Even though there's doing an isser, I remember he said, I'm divorcing you, or except you can't eat chazer, right? I'm divorcing you on the condition that you're going to eat chazer. What's the deal over there? So Abaya says that's an impossible condition, and therefore the kedusha, the tanai is not valid. Rava says no, it's impossible. You'll get malchus. You could choose not to eat it, not to get divorced. So, but here it involves an isser too. But here the marriage is beiser. He's saying you're mutter to marry anybody except if you're on a money, you can't marry a kohen gadol or a grusha chutz kayed, or you can't marry a kohen. Now she can't marry a kohen anyway. If he's divorcing her, she can't marry a kohen anyway. Subsequently, but if he marries a kohen, the kedusha is chal. If today a kohen goes and marries a grusha, it's a good kedusha. The kids are chalalim. The kids aren't kohanim, but the kedusha is chal. You need to get. So elamon kohen gadol grusha chutz kayed, mamzer sinsin Yisrael, mamzer marrying Yisrael, or basra and sin mamzer. Chomish yesh love kedusha, or anybody. Even involves an isser, but there's kedushin. Afilu ba'aveira, even though the kedushin is through sin, like in these cases, you're not supposed to marry a mamzer. Let's say she marries a mamzer, or she marries a kohen, etc. Afilu also the get's no good because there is a reservation in the get because she could marry somebody. Sure, there's an aveira involved, but the marriage should be chal, and therefore, if he says you're divorced from everybody except for a kohen, let's say you can't marry a kohen. I'm divorcing you for everybody except as far as kohanim is concerned, you're not divorced. If you live with a kohen, you marry a kohen, you're still married to me, really. You know what? That's a problem. That's like you're divorced from everybody except for Joe. That doesn't work. As Blazer said it works, but we don't hold that it works. We're like the Rabbanan. Therefore, the get is puzzled because there's a reservation in the get. A get to be valid has to say you're free to marry anybody you want. It says, the beginning says, I'm divorcing except for your father, my father, etc., incest, and anybody that there's no kedushin. What does that come to include? Any chayve krisis, any cases where kedushin is not chal, the cases of incest or other cases where it involves a chorus, the kedushin is not chal. Call the safe. When he says in the safe about except you can't marry a Kohen or you can't marry a mamzer, things like that. As far as those people are concerned, you're still married. That includes also Shar Chayv and any other Chayv Elavan. Put some parentheses going on. Moni Moavi Nesini Mitzri Atomi. Rashi brings down Mitzri Atomi. That's an Isra say. In other words, a Mitzri, an Egyptian. We don't have real Egyptians today. They're all Muslim Arabs who moved there. But originally, a Mitzri and Adam, if you knew who they were, if they're Magai, you can't marry them until the third generation. The third generation is the first generation is a Ger Mitzri. He's Jewish, but he's a Ger Mitzri. Second generation is his kids, and the third generation can marry Jews. So again, in those cases, it's usher to marry them in the first two generations, but the kedushin is chal, and therefore, if you say you're divorced from everybody except for that Egyptian convert, that's a problem with the get. You've made a reservation. Get it's not a complete get, and therefore the get's invalid. What happens if she says you can't marry now? Katan cannot make kedushin. A boy who's not bar mitzvah cannot do kedushin. A girl could be mekudesh. A young girl can be mekudesh through her father. A kedushin d'oraisa. A man can marry off his daughter as soon as she's born. So what happens if he said, "I'm divorcing you from everybody except for a katan"? Now his marriage is not. He can't perform a marriage now anyway until he's bar mitzvah. Is that considered a reservation? Because eventually he's going to be able to be, once he's bar mitzvah, he can marry her. What do you say right now? He can't marry anybody. He's not capable of marrying an 8-year-old boy. Say, I'm telling you, I'm divorcing you from everybody except for that little boy, Peter, over there. That little boy, he's 8 years old, nice Jewish boy. As far as he's concerned, you're still married to me. Is that considered a reservation in the get? It's not going to get or not. Do you say, well, he can't perform marriage anyway right now. He's not bar mitzvah. It's just like marrying your father. But he's going to be bar mitzvah later on. Therefore, he is considered to be capable of getting married, and therefore it's a reservation in the get, and it ruins the get because it's like Joe. Joe is 8 years old. Joe's 8 years old. You're divorced from everybody except as far as Joe's concerned. You're still married. What happens if Joe's 8? Is that a reservation? He can't marry anybody now. Joe can't marry anybody anyway now, according to the Torah. He's not bar mitzvah. Or do you say, yeah, but eventually he will be bar mitzvah, and therefore it is a reservation and invalidates the get. Or Malay, we'll bring a proof from this brisa. Rav Nachman brought a proof from this brisa. It says, Ketana miskareshes b'kedushi aviyah. Let's say a young girl was married by her father. That means it's a kedusha min haTorah. Her father married her off. Father dies. She's 8 years old now. Can she get a get? Can she receive a get? Yeah, because you don't need her das. It's against today you need her das, but in Torah you don't need her das, and even against her will. As long as she knows what's going on, she understands she's being divorced and she doesn't stay with her husband anymore. I'm like with her, even though her father married her, she could be divorced. Why should she be able to divorce for being in V'yatz of a Haisa? Pasuk says when she gets divorced, she'll go marry somebody else. How can you marry somebody else? She can't marry somebody else if she's not bar mitzvah. She's not bar mitzvah. No, if she's 8 years old, her father married her off once. Now the father's out of the picture. Even if he's alive, he is no longer rishus over her. Let's say he's dead. Make it simple. He's dead. She can't marry somebody min haTorah right now. Her mother or brother can marry her for the kedushin d'Rabbanan, but there's no kedushin d'Oraisa. So how could that work? How could she receive a get when she's 8 years old if she can't get remarried? The pasuk says v'yatz v'haisa. Just like when she gets divorced, she has to be able to get married. Ella also qualified. The answer is she will be capable of getting married when she's bat mitzvah when she's 12. So here too, this boy will eventually be able to get married when he's bar mitzvah. Therefore, when you say, I'm divorcing you from everybody except for Joe, the 8-year-old boy, called him Peter before, just to make sense, Joe, the 8-year-old boy, that's a problem. That's a reservation. Even though he can't marry now, but he will be bar mitzvah later on. Therefore, that ruins the get. So the Gemara decided that one. So if Nachman answered, yeah, you see, that's as long as you're going to be able to be bar mitzvah later on and be capable of getting married, that's considered a reservation. It's considered a problem. It doesn't mean if Joe was 30 or Joe was 8. That's an exception. It's a reservation in the get and invalidates the get. Now the Gemara is going to add a bunch of cases which are questionable. What happens if we say chutzman an alodim? I'm divorcing from everybody except for the kids who are not born yet. Now, kids who are not born, they're going to be born. We don't know who they are, but God knows who's going to be born, right? We know today somewhere in Yerushalayim, some kids are going to be born, right? So you say chutzman an alodim mao. I'm divorcing you from everybody except for kids who are going to be born in the future. Obviously she's going to be older than her husband. Right? She marries that guy, the guy's going to be at least, somewhat younger than her. She's already a woman, and the kids, her husband, her potential husband, is not born yet. It happens. Sometimes people marry men who are much younger than them. So chutzman alad mao, hashtami alosa. He's not born yet. So that's not. You're not making a reservation in the get. You're saying I'm divorcing already except for Joe. Joe's not born yet. There's going to be some future Joe. Is that an exception? He's not born yet. Is he going to be born? So is that an exception? So again, we learn in our mission. The mission says, I'm divorcing you except for everybody. You can't marry anybody except an Eved or a Goy. An Eved of Kachavim, you can't marry them. You're divorced from everybody except as far as they are concerned, you're still married to me. If you say that you consider what? The people who are going to be born in the future are considered like they're alive right now, and it's a reservation to get. Eved Kachavim Nami, they can be Megayer. An Eved can be free. An Eved, talking about an Eved Knani, of course, an Eved Ivri is a full Jew. An Eved Knani, as soon as he's a half Jew, as soon as you free him, he's a full Jew. So he's the Eved of Kachavim also. They could be Megayer, the Eved could be freed, and the Goy could be Megayer. So how is that different than a child being born? And the Mishnah says, if I say you're divorced from everybody except for the Goy, that's not a problem because you can't marry the Goy anyway. Yeah, but the Goy might be Megayer, just like the child could be born. It says Hanach Lavle Yorikaima. Most Goyim are not going to be convert. It's not normal for them to convert. There are exceptions. Hani Lasili, but the ones who are going to be born are going to be born. We know that there's going to be a lot of kids born, right? The next few days, next year, whatever. In the future, there are going to be millions of kids born, right? So they are going to be born. That's normal. So is it like the case? When they say I'm divorcing everybody except for people who are going to be born yet, we're not born now, is that like the case of Eved Kachavim, who could be Megayer later on, they'll be capable later on? Or do you say no, Goyim are not likely to convert? It's an exception if they convert, whereas children who are going to be born are going to be born. So we're not sure about that. So all these cases from here on out, this case included, we'll see are not really resolved. Here's this. Can you marry your wife's sister? You marry your wife's sister. While she's alive, you cannot. Right? You can't marry your wife's sister. That's chorus. In fact, marriage is not chal. It's like marrying your brother, or a woman marrying her brother. A man cannot marry his wife's sister. So let's say I say, I'm divorcing everybody except for the husband of your sister. The husband of your sister cannot marry you now anyway, as long as the sister is alive, right? If she dies, if your sister dies, he can marry you. That's what they do, right? A woman would die on childbirth, then her sister would marry the husband, take care of the kids. That's her nieces and nephews. That was common, right? But as long as she's alive, you can't, even if he divorces her. If Reuben is married to Leah, and he divorces Leah, can he marry Rachel, her sister? No, not as long as Leah is alive. He has to kill Leah first, then he can marry Rachel. That's how it works. She has to die, right? Alea bechayah, the pasuk says. So let's say he says, I'm divorcing you, right? Reuben's married to Leah, and he says, I'm divorcing you from everybody except for your sister Rachel's husband, Yankel. You can't marry him, but you can't marry him anyway now. Yeah, but later on, maybe the sister will die. Maybe Rachel will die. So he says, can't marry right now. The kushan's not chal, it's incest. Chayav chorus, mamzer, everything. Odilma, zimin de mesa, achosar may say, well, listen, maybe the sister will die, and eventually she'll be capable, chazilei, and she will be fit to marry him, and therefore this is a reservation in the get. Again, if I say I'm divorcing everybody except for your father, you can't marry your father anyway. It's not a reservation in the get. But if or a guy, not a reservation again. But if I say I'm divorcing everybody except for your sister's husband, is that a reservation or not? Well, right now, it's not a reservation. You can't marry him anyway, but maybe the sister will die. So that question stands. Amalei Tanisua, again, wanted to prove it from Eved of Kachavim. You can't, if you say I'm divorcing everybody except for a guy, again, Geiris Lashchicha. It's not common to be Megayer, Misa Shchicha, but people die. Everybody dies eventually. So it's possible that it's more likely that her sister will die than that the particular Goy or Eved will be Megayer. What about Chutz Mizunayich? Let's say it says, listen, I'm divorcing you from everybody except for anybody that you sleep with. I'm divorcing everybody except for anybody that you sleep with out of marriage, right? Not out of wedlock. Let's say you just have what they call a relationship with somebody, right? As far as that's concerned, as far as that man is concerned, you're still married to me. I'm divorcing everybody. You can marry anybody if you go through a regular marriage. But if you sleep with anybody, that guy you sleep with is considered, as far as he's concerned, you're still married to me. What do you say? Now, but as soon as you left no reservation as far as marriage. You can marry anybody in the world via marriage. Anybody, any Jew in the world you can marry via marriage, right? So he didn't leave anything out, and therefore it's a good get. But he said, yeah, but he did have a reservation with Bia, and people might sleep with a guy out of wedlock. So that's a reservation. In other words, when get has to be, you're free to marry anybody or sleep with anybody, even though you're not supposed to sleep with them out of wedlock. But if you left that, if you said you can marry anybody you want, but as far as anybody that you sleep with out of wedlock, you're still married to me. So is that considered a reservation to get or not? Again, we don't. Amalei again, he wants to prove it. You can't marry your father. I'm divorcing you except for my father and your father. Who am I? What are we talking about? Either Masuan, Abba Vicha. You can't marry your parent, your father anyway. We're talking about if their father is Mazana with you. So there it's not leaving over, even though it's out of wedlock. So you say that's not considered leaving something out of the get because you can't sleep with them anyway. But for somebody else, that is considered a reservation in the get. I'm divorcing you from everybody except for people that you would sleep with out of wedlock. As far as they're concerned, you're still married to me. So that's a reservation. This is more Dilma Venesu and the evidence of even by the father. He married her, even though Kedusha is not chal, but he married her anyway. That's what we're speaking about. So we don't know that we're speaking about out of wedlock or not. You can't prove it. All these cases you can't prove. What happens if he says, I'm divorcing you from everybody, but anybody that you would sleep with in an unnatural position, like anal sex. I'm divorcing you from everybody. You can marry anybody you want, except if you have anal sex with somebody, you're not divorced as far as you're still married to me as far as I'm concerned. He didn't leave anything out as far as normal relations. It says any kind of sleeping with a woman, that's all considered sleeping, and therefore you are considered leaving something out, and therefore it's not a valid get. I'm divorcing you from everybody, but as far as breaking your nadarim, I'm still retaining for myself the right to break your nadarim. They're going to do that. He didn't leave anything else from marriage. As far as marriage, you can marry anyone. A husband's entitled to confirm or break the nadarim. And if you're leaving that out, so you're allowing her to marry somebody in a full marriage. You're saying you can marry anybody you want, but whoever marries you, that other guy will not be able to break a nadarim. I'm retaining that right for myself. So is that leaving something out that gets not complete? Let's say if you marry a Kohen, you can't eat truma. I'm Yisrael. I'm divorcing you. But if you marry a Kohen, you can't eat truma. I'm leaving that out. I'm leaving that part of the future marriage out of it. But as soon as he allowed her to marry a Kohen, allowed her to marry any Jew in the world, it says, to be married to a Kohen involves also the ability to eat truma, and you're diminishing from the ability of the future marriage, and therefore the get is not a complete get. When he says, I'm divorcing you, marry anybody you want, but your Yerusha still goes to me. What? That's a good one. Yeah. I want to keep Yerusha. A husband, who inherits a wife? A wife is, if a woman dies, first Yerusha goes to the husband. He learns that most of the Rishon learn it's a Doraisa. Right? It says the Gemara says to marry anybody you want. Again, the Gemara learns that who's your share, your relative, your husband, and he will inherit you. That's the drasha. Some learn it's a rabbanan, but the Gemara usually holds it's a doraisa. That if a woman dies, the husband, not the children. the husband. If there's no husband, then the children can come into play and or other relatives. But the husband has first right. So do you say, he's allowed her to marry any other Jew she wants? She can marry anybody she wants, except the Yerusha goes to him. Well, if the future husband can't inherit her because you're inheriting her, he's not a full husband, which means you're going to give her a full get. Let's say I'm divorcing you from anybody, except if the future husband marries you with a star. How do you get married? The kesef star v'via. We're going to start kedushin next week, right? You have to get married, kesef star v'ia. We always do it with kesef today, a kesef or shava kesef, a ring or something of value, right? We discourage bia. That's considered princess, but you can marry her with a star, just like a get. So let's say he says I'm divorcing anybody. But if your future husband marries you with a star, you're still considered married to Imao. You can still marry her with some other way. So he's not really leaving anything out of the marriage. And therefore the get is a complete get. All kinds of getting married, whether it's kesef, star, via, are the same. So if you excluded her from getting married with a star, you're excluding her from getting married kesef via also. Therefore, you didn't give her a full get. A get has to be where she's totally free to marry anybody except for the people that the Torah sanctioned her from marrying. She can't marry relatives. If she can't marry a Kohen, but anybody else she can marry. So, are you limiting her over here? There's a reservation in the get because you're telling her, "I'm divorcing you, but if you get remarried, he can't break your nedarim, or he cannot inherit you, or he cannot give you truma, or he cannot marry you with a star." Is that a reservation? Not all these questions stand. The only one that's really resolved is the first one, where he said, "I'm divorcing you except for the 8-year-old Joe." Is that a reservation? Joe can't marry her now anyway. Or do you say, well, Joe will be bar mitzvah in a few years in mitzvah Shem? So that's the question. He can invite you to the bar mitzvah, but he can't marry you at this point, right? So therefore, that's our issue. Well, how do you write a get? What's in the get? The main part of the get is where you say you're free to marry anybody. Rashi says, a get, that's what you have to write. The Minotaur, probably that's enough. You can marry anybody you want. You're free to marry anybody you want. However, Rav Yehuda adds on. Rav Yehuda says, this document, the that you're getting from me, Sefer Tiruchan is a book of cutting off. It's cutting off the marriage. You get a letter of release, the get patur, and also a writ of abandonment you're being fired from the marriage. Patur, right? Patur means to be abandoned, to release a release. These are all the shows. They all mean the same thing. That it's a book of release, abandonment, release. You're cut off from your Torah. You have to add all those words according to Rabbi Yehuda to be very, very clear. Lemehach, for you from now on, that you can marry anybody that you want. Anybody you stand that you can marry anyone. Rabbi Yehuda adds all those words on. If you look in the back of the Schottenstein, they have an example of a get. Now, these gets are written different ways. Today we write them with 12 lines because it's a gematria gimel test get. That's 12 lines, and it's all written in this Aramaic lashon. But the main part is the Torah is the names of the people and the cities that they're from, and the date. And usually the custom was they only write a get in a city that's on a river, that it can clearly be defined. Most of the cities, the Jewish cities that were very populated were, but there were small villages that weren't. Like where my father came from Pokrzyniec, Poland. If they wanted to get, they had to go to Klementyv, which was a neighboring town, which was on the river, under this river. So, because you had to write it. If you look at it says it's from like New York City, on the ocean or on the Hudson River, or whatever it is. You write, near a place that has a river, so or an ocean or whatever that clearly defined. So you want it to be as clear as possible, so that there will be nobody will question the validity of the get, that it won't be challenged. So Rabbi Yehuda adds on all those words. Gufo get shel shichur. What about a get shichur? A get that you're giving to an Evet Knani or Shifra Knanis, a half Jew that you're giving. Harei bas chorin. You're in the case of a girl, you're a bas chorin or ben chorin. You are a free person. Harei latzmach, are you for yourself? So that's why you get shichur. a get for a woman is basically a Rebbe Tesach Adam, and Yehuda added on all those various lashonos. So Pshita, the Gemara says, Pshita Amalish, if he told his wife, Harayat Baschon, you're a free girl. Is that release her from the marriage? No, she was free before too. She was a Baschon. Baschon means a full Jew, a regular free Jewish person, right? A freeman. Amalish that's not saying, that's not releasing her from marriage. Or Amala, again, Amala means it's really Kasavla. Amala, the Shifchas, he told the Shifra, you can marry anybody you want. Again, Lo Amala, that's not releasing her from bondage, from working for him. Just you're return to marry anybody. Of course, you can marry anybody you want anyway. A Shifra, marry a guy, whatever you want to do. Lo Amala, that doesn't mean. Amala Isha Re'at Latzma, let's say he says, you are for yourself. Same lotion that you use for, that the Mishnah said use for a get Shifra for a Shifra Knanis. If he tells a wife, you're for yourself, Mao, you're totally free, meaning you're free from the marriage, you're free to marry, or just, in terms of work, you're free to work. Your work doesn't belong to me. Let's bring a proof from our Mishnah. The time Gufu shall get shikhr, our Mishnah said, right? You are a free person, you're for yourself. Ma avda, the Kala Gufu, when you own the Eved's body. When he says he or she requires their own body, just you don't own the woman's, you own a woman in the sense she belongs to you, she can't marry somebody else, and her work belongs to you unless you forego that. But you don't own her body, you don't own her in the sense you can't sell her to somebody else, you can't sell your wife, you don't own her. And certainly that would free her from the marriage. So if you say Harayat Latzmacha, Harayat works both for get shikhr and for get isha. All right, let's say he tells his servant, his Eved or his Eved Knani, Shifra Knanis, Ainli Asik Bach. I got no business with you. What are you out there, Mao? Rav Chanin, Rav Chanin Nichos, and all Rashi. Tashma, I'll bring a proof from here. The tiny we learned, we had this before. Hamocher Abdullah. Let's say you sell your Eved. Your Eved is an Eved Knani, which means he's a half Jew. You convert him as a half Jew. He had Mila and Phila. Hamocher Abdullah, and he keeps mitzvahs like a Jewish woman. Let's say you sell him to a guy like a club. Now that's a terrible thing you've done, because when you sell him to a guy, you won't have the opportunity to do the mitzvahs like a woman can do, like a Jewish woman could do. So because of that, the rabbi said, yes, he goes out freedom. As a knas to you, he's free. Now, he already sold to the guy. The guy has, what do you mean he goes free? But Sarf get shikhr, you have to give him a get. What does that mean? Oh no. That's only, he needs a get if you didn't already write him a get. You didn't write him a document first of all. Oh no, if you wrote a document already, my owner, what is that? Rav Sheshes, the Kasav law, you wrote the Eved, Kanani, or Shavakinas, like typically when you escape from the guy, Ein Asik Bach, I have no business with you. So you see, Ein Asik Bach is a lashon of freedom. So the Mishnah said that how do you free a slave? Arayat ben Chorin, or at Bas Chorin, or at Latzmacha. Ein Asik Bach also works. That's also a valid release for a guy, because Asik means you have no business with you, meaning until now, I have business with you. I own you. You all your work is for me. I own you. But for a woman, that wouldn't work. A woman at Harayat Mutar Sachaladim, we said, or Harayat Latzmacha, you are totally free. Ein Asik Bach probably would not work with a Jew, with a wife, because you have no business with her to begin with. Rabbi Yehuda adds on, the day this will be for you from me, Sefer Truchim Vektashuchim, a book of cutting off, a book of severance. You're severing her. You get a shvukin, a letter of release. You have also what's the machlokas between Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda? Tanakama says, what's a get? Okay, I'm writing it to you. Moshe Yankel is writing to Rivka Leah. You're mutter to marry anybody you want. Okay, that's good. It's being written in the get, and he has to give it to her, not fool her. Also, he has to say, here's your get, but it's got to be written in there. Rabbi Yehuda, you got to have all these letters. This should be a letter of release and document of severance and all this, and you can free to marry her if you want. You have to have all that lashon in there. Why? And even what was said in the Mishnah is not the complete one. Now, I want to, before we even say this more, we're at the 2 dots on the base. Take a look at Rashi. See Rashi a little bit below where we are. You see where it says Agos Sabach above there, about 5-6 lines. Take a look at Rashi. Zeu Tofes Aget. This is the form of the get. You see it in Rashi. Zeu Tofes Aget. Tetris Yasichi Lichi. I am releasing you. And Plonis you, Ploni Baponi, you Rivka Bas Leah. Since that you were my wife up until now. The Kado, and now from now on, Patris, I am releasing you, B'Shafkis, and I'm leaving you be, releasing you. I'm letting you go. Which is again severing all relationship. Yisichi dini Yisichi the Tahavna Shor. Now from now on, you have permission, and you have the ability, like let's say the ability, the authorization, but you're authorized yourself. From now on, the insist for anybody that you want to marry. Nobody can prevent you from today. It's a long lashon, more than we saw in the Mishnah. From today, forever. The Dane, that's what Rabbi in the Mishnah, that's where the top line in the Mishnah on this page, Rabbi Yehuda said the Dane. Here he adds on. So Rashi gave us a full lashon before the Dane. Now he says the Dane, and this should be from me to you. Get bitur v'seif teruchim v'gerash shvukin kedas Moshe b'Yisrael. So Rashi gives us a much longer version of the get than it's written in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda just says that it has to have those lashonos in there, but that doesn't mean to limit it because as we see, there's different. Did you see the picture in the back of the sefer? Doesn't have it there. A lot of the some of the art scrolls or Schottensteins have in the very back, not the very last page, but somewhere in the back there's an example of a get written in Brooklyn and on the river and all that. It's got all the lashonos, but it has to have all these different lashonos. Even though the Rabbanan said all you have to say is a Rebbe Teres Chaim, that's good enough. But Rabbi Yehuda said we got to be even clearer about that. Why? Let's see in the Gemara now, the 2 dots, halfway down the page on the base. What's the machlokes between Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbanan Saviyadam Shem B'Chichas Saviyadam. Even though a declaration which is not 100% clear, you're mutter to marry anybody, is not as clear as Rabbi Yehuda's added lashonos. Say Yadam Shem B'Chichas is still Yadayim. It's pretty clear. It's good enough. You're free to marry. Free to marry means you're not married to me and I'm Tesachaladim, right? That's it. The Aflag of low cost of, even though you didn't write the day, even though you didn't write, and this document is what freeing you, Muchla Milsa, it's clear the Bahai get the Kamagashla. He gives her the get, and he says, even though you didn't say in the document, and this document is the document of release, but it's clear that that's what's freeing her, what's releasing her from the marriage. That's the Cham's opinion. Yadam Shem B'Chichas Haviyadam. We said it's more in the Dharm and Kedushin. In the Dharm we had it more recently, right? Yadam Shem B'Chichas Haviyadam or not. That's what we talked about at the beginning of the Dharm, about Yados, beginning of Dharm, beginning of Nasr. But no, if it's not 100% clear, it's therefore you have to say clearly the time of the Kosovo. The reason it works is because he wrote in it the Dane, this document, the Muchlamilsa, it's clear the Bahai Gita Kamagarsha that he's divorcing with this document. Of a low cost, if he didn't write Dane, you might think he's divorcing with words. Vashtar Rai Valmu. Very interesting. In a marriage, and when he gets married, he said, you're married, Kesser Shtar Bia, right? Shtar is good enough. If he gives her a ring, is there a shtar? There's a ksuba, that's a separate thing. Ksuba's drop on. The Midaraisa, he can marry her with Bia or with money, even though there is no document. So what is he doing? How is he marrying her? He's saying, Arayat Mukadeshesli with this ring, and you're married to me with this ring. There's no document. Maybe by get also, what's a common law divorce? The judge says you're divorced, that's it. He gives him maybe a receipt, like a document. But here the point is that the get is what affects the release. What the get, the document, the get itself is what if he just says you're free to marry, I'm divorcing you, I'm free to aid him and everything, but there's no get. It's not about you have to get a get, you have to receive a get. The get affects it. There's different kinds of documents. There's some documents that or most documents I would say are like receipts. Like a bill of sale or receipt. When you buy something, what affects what makes the transaction take place? The bill, the receipt? No. What affects take place is you paid money, right? Or you picked up the item, you made a Kenyan, but basically most cases it's you paid money, you picked it up. The document is just a proof of purchase, right? Proof of purchase, a receipt or a bill of sale, something like that. Sometimes though, the document itself by the get, which is it's rare. I'm sure there are cases in common law also. I don't know if you a bearer bond. Also, that doesn't the bond itself shows the ownership, or like a shtar mecher or something like that. But again, it's only proof of the transaction. It's not the transaction itself, but the get Giving the get is what makes the transaction. If you could stand from today till tomorrow and say all day long, you're divorced from me, you're free from me, I never want to see you again, marry whoever you want, no exceptions, no reservations, none of the cases we saw, no reservations, it doesn't help. Without a document, it doesn't work. So Rav Yehuda says, Chum say, even though you didn't say you just wrote it on, so it's clear that it's the get which is making the gerusha take place. Rav Yehuda says, no, you have to have all these things in there. V'dain, you have to have a dain. Why? Dain, the muchamilsa, that's clear that you're divorcing. Dain says, this is the document that's causing you to get divorced. Without this document, it wouldn't work. If you wouldn't have a dain, you might say, he's divorcing with words. The shtar is simply a proof. As we do, what do we say today? What do they do today? When they give a get, that there's Adam and the rabbis are there and make sure it's all written correctly and it's written the Shema and all that. Gives it the get. What do they do afterwards? She takes the get and they rip it up. They don't want to, it's dangerous for a get to fly around. Somebody else might use it. You might try to collect your ksuba twice, whatever. They give her a receipt from the Bezdin. This is to prove when you go to New York or Las Vegas or someplace else, and you want to get remarried, here's a proof from the Jerusalem court that you were properly divorced. But it's not the get. The get is what makes the thing take place. So Rabbi Yehuda says you got to be very clear. Amar Abai, Haiman, the cusp of Gita. When you write a get, you should be very clear. You shouldn't write the dain with a yud, because that likes a din, the mashma of a din. It's like saying, the halacha is I have to divorce you. The mashma, it's a din I divorce you. But if it wouldn't be a din, I wouldn't marry you. I wouldn't divorce you. It's like that law is I have to divorce you. And in certain cases, maybe he has to divorce her, like it's a marriage in sin, a coin with a grusha or Yisrael with a mamzer. So if he writes for din, he might say, listen, the law is I have to divorce you, but I don't really want to. That's a reservation in the get. So don't write the dain with a yud, the mashma with din, ela b'dain, this. Lo lichta v'geres, you shouldn't write geres with a yud, the mashma v'geres sounds like a roof. It sounds like a gag, a roof, right? Ela igeres with a yud in Aramaic, it's a roof. Ela igeres, a letter. Below lichta v'mahach, you shouldn't write mahach, why? With a yud in there, the mashma limach, you belong to me from now on. You want to be very clear that you're not mine anymore and you're free to marry. So you shouldn't write it with a yud, ela, we write without lamahach, without a yud. Right, the mashma limach, and you're very clear that the mehach should have the hay, meaning don't make it look like a ches. If you put the left leg of the hay, you make it go up, it looks like a ches. It's mashma kichecha, like we're just joking with you. And you should write the yishavayayin, the yisyatzvin with 3 yuds together there. Each one with 3 consecutive yuds, tlasa yudin. The mashma tahabiyam, that's that you should get up and marry whoever you want. As opposed, if it's only with 2 years, it's mashma that in general women can be free and can marry whoever they want. That's what he says. That it shouldn't say that if you write it without the extension. Rashi says right. Because if you write it without the having a shor, at least plus you should put 3 yuds there, 3 yuds. Because otherwise, we're talking in general, women who can get married to somebody else. It should be clear that it's you. You are free to marry somebody else. And for that, you need 3 yuds. This is in Aramaic, of course. We'll look at above the when you write get tiruchen or what was the word? Sefer tiruchen. Make sure that the vav is a long one. The above the shibuka and make the vav of shibuka also long. The mashma trichim v'shabikin that you are. It's cutting off for you, not for somebody else. Not in general for people who are free to marry. Again, the above should be very clear. That shouldn't look like a yud. Below above the kado, and from now on, make sure that the kado, it looks like the word kado means from now on you're free to marry. That above should be long. The mashma, if you don't make it long, or mashma the kadi. Kadi means like for nothing. Below klum, Rashi says, right? Kadi for nothing at all. Yush kadi lo kana, right? So it shouldn't like it means nothing, and make sure that it's kado. Below lift of isnasba, don't write isnasba. You shouldn't write la isnasba to free to marry, because you could also read that as lo isnasba. You shouldn't get married. Ela isnasba. If you write it with an aleph in there, it looks like lo isnasba. You can't marry somebody else. So you make sure you write it with a hey, so it's you should be able to marry somebody else. Again, very clear. So what's the halacha? Is the halacha like Rabbi Yehuda that you have to add on those things or not? Being in the dain, do you have to write the dain like Rabbi Yehuda says? Or being in the dain, or is the halacha like the chacham? This can Rava decree that in a get you should write this. This person, Reuben ben Yaakov, he released B'torach and severed Yasponsa, and he released and severed his wife, so and so. Davis Insa Mikadamdana, who was his wife until now. Niyomadan from this day on, Ula Olam forever. He didn't say anything about Bidain Smash, but you don't need Bidain. Not like Rav Yehuda. Did he say the whole other text? Where's the rest of the text we just quoted in Rashi? And even in the Mishnah is quoted more than over here. Elavin, you need those things too. Rava just all it says is what Rava added on. Rava says you have to make sure that those are things you have to be decreed. Make sure you have those things in there. Not that they were necessarily new decrees, but he said that's what he emphasized. There's more to it also. It's not all just he didn't include everything. He didn't include the entire text. You need them too. You need this as well. And that's what the Gemara says that even though maybe technically, if you write Cholam, that's good enough. But we'd rather go like Rav Yehuda, be very, very clear, and there should be that nobody should be able to contest the get and say it wasn't a valid get. They'll question it, they'll say it wasn't written properly, etc., etc. You want to make sure that it won't be contested, so you want to be very clear. Miyomadunan, why do you have to write from today on? After all, you have a date on the get. Rashi points out, even though we hold like Rav Yossi, that if a shchimer, if there's a date there, he doesn't have to say from this day on, right? That's not necessary. He says you have to write it. He says you don't have to get the shchimer. It's manos machich, but it's from today. You don't have to write Yom and a get from today, because if you write a get, if you have a zman on the get, even if you didn't write me'achshav, that's the zman. The fact that there's a zman on the star, that shows that it means from today. So why did you have to say from today on? There's a date in it anyway. So even though we passed him like a Yossi, it better be clear. Well, they said, it's not a get lachem. If you wrote a get, even if you didn't write me'achshav, but you wrote a get, and Rav Yossi says, well, if there's a date in it, that's good enough. Even if you didn't write from today, because he didn't mean to give the get after he died, he meant to give it from today. So Rav said all gitin should have miyom, even though we hold like Rav Yossi, we want to remove ourselves from any machlokas. According to the ones who argue with Rav Yossi, Zman Shel Shtar is not mechiach. The date, just putting the date in there does not indicate that it's from today. So therefore, he wants to be clear. According to everybody, say even though the date's written in the get, you want to write from today onwards. Even though according to Rav Yossi, you wouldn't need from today onwards. There's already a date on there, right? And even though we passed Rav Yossi, we want to be yotzei l'choladeos. Say be very, very clear. There's a date on the get, and in the get you have to write from today on. You're free to marry. People you don't want to make a sort of a taint and say, well, maybe he wasn't really divorced, maybe when she got remarried, the kids from Zayim. You want it to be very clear. So Ula Olam, the last word on the page, says what is it saying in the Lashon of the get? That you're free to marry, right? The Gemara didn't, in the Mishnah didn't have that on Ula Olam, right? But where do we have that? Rava said Yomadan and Ula Olam. Rava said you're free today from this day on and forever. Why do you say forever? What do you say that for? The other day we had a question. Rav asked Nachman. Omar, let's say he said, he said, Hayom yat ishti. Today I'm divorcing you. But tomorrow you're back. You're my wife again. I'm divorcing you for the day, right? You're a queen for the day. You're free for a day, but you're married to me tomorrow. Today you're not married to me. Tomorrow you are. What's the halacha? So we said it was a question, and yesterday's Gemara. At the end of the Gemara, we said what? That it's a question. 2 days ago, right? Yes, 2 days ago. At the end of Monday's Daf, we said it's a question both according to Rabbanan, it's a question according to Blazer, and we came out that once he's divorced or she's divorced, you can't take her back. So even though we paskin that, but once he's divorced, he wants to be clear about it. Even though Rashi says, even though we already said, given the pasuk, once he's divorced, she's divorced. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't write, you're divorced today. No, it's not good enough to write divorce. It sounds like maybe tomorrow you're not divorced. And even though the halach is you're divorced either way, we want it to be clear that you're fully divorced. So you write on it, you're divorced from today onwards forever. From me, you're divorced forever. He could take her back, yeah. Because as far as now is concerned, you're free to. If he's not a Kohen, he could take her back. If he's not a Kohen and she wasn't married to somebody else in between, he could take her back, even though you wrote that in the get. As far as right now, it's free. You're free from. You're free to forever. But later on, you can take her back under a new condition, under a new marriage. But as far as this marriage is concerned, This marriage is over forever. Gufo shall get shechur. So what's the goof? What are you writing to get shechur? We said a rap and chor and a rap latzmach. Those are shown us in the Mishnah. It's going to Rebuta added on more again because Rebuta is one who says it's got to be very clear. If you sell us a evet, a bill of sale or an evet, you write avdatan on this evet that we're talking about. Yankul the evet, mutztak leavdo. He is halachically, he's legally an evet. In other words, dino pasuk leavdo shein shum ira b'chir. There's no question. There is nobody's contested or nobody's appealed his status as an evet. He's not. Nobody going to say he's free. I'm telling you right now, he's definitely he's not a free man, he's a slave. He is severed and released min charure, from all freedom. He's not free in any sense at all, separated from freedom. And from any claims, or from any demands of the king and queen that he belongs to them. For Russian and nobody else, the slaves would have like a chain on their neck or some sort of a mark, a slavery mark, indicating that he has nobody else's except for mine. I'm the one selling him. He's only the only mark of slavery is mine. He's not nobody else's a slave. In other words, I own him free and clear. That's what we'd say. It's very clear. I own him free and clear. He also has no blemish, in this sense, a blemish of his action. Rashi says he's not an armed bandit. If they sell the slave, you thought he's going to work for you. It turns out that he's a ganav. Deals off. I don't want any armed bandits working for me. So I'm telling you right now that he's free of any taint of crime. And he has no boils to nafik ad mitzar, right? That come out for the next two or a titzar. The nafik ad titzar. It comes out for the next 2 years. Titzar is lashon of 2 years. So any boils that come out between now and the next 2 years, whether they're new or old, I am guaranteeing that he will have no boils. In other words, if he has any boils, because it's disgusting to look at that, agitation that's considered disgusting. So ad titzar means until for the next 2 years, I guarantee it's like a guarantee they'll have no boils for the next 2 years. My Susi, by the way, if you have a boil, what's the remedy for a boil? Amrabayim, ginber, like ginger. Umartcha and silver dross, kabrisa and sulfur, b'chola dechamra and wine vinegar, mushra zesa and olive oil, benat b'chipper and white naphtha, b'shaifile and rub that on, smear it on, begat the avza with a goose feather. So take that whole mixture and use a goose feather, and that will relieve a person of boils. But in any case, he's guaranteeing that basically you're saying that I own them free and clear. He's a slave, he's not a free man, and he has no blemishes, he's not a crook, anything like that. And I also guarantee that he's not sick, that he has no boils. All right, think of the Mishnah tomorrow. Right. That's what it's an old remedy. Old remedy. Right. Have a good day.